Yesterday I made a video about 5 things I love and hate about living in Florida, but I thought I should continue that thought today because I didn't really cover everything and some important things, because I know a lot of you are thinking about moving down here or just visiting, and I thought maybe you might want to know these things, especially if you've never been here before. Now, when we moved down here almost 7 years ago, in my mind I mainly remembered, because I vacationed here, but that was years before. I remember the sand and the beaches and the palm trees and the ocean. When we came down here, I was just amazed by all the beautiful greenery, palm trees and green trees, and I just didn't remember that. So you might be surprised by that. And in the summer, when it rains as much as it does, it really grows. It's like, I don't want to say it's a jungle, but it just can grow and overtake the area wherever you are. Now I want to make a disclaimer here that I am only speaking about my personal experience in Southwest Florida where we live, because I think it's important for folks not to generalize a whole state by what somebody says, or generalize a people because you've experienced, say, a bad experience with a person from a certain country or a different background and think, well, everybody must be that way. It's not like that. So it's not good to generalize in any situation. Northern Florida could be different than Southwest Florida, and where I live is completely different than Miami or Fort Lauderdale or Orlando. So some of these things I've discussed in my other Florida videos, that if you're a newer viewer or subscriber, you may not have seen them. So you might have heard some of these things already. But one of the things when you first move down here is it's very important to transfer your driver's license to a Florida driver's license. I do believe, at least in our area, you have 10 days to do it. And I don't know how lenient they are, but I heard a woman said that she got like a huge ticket because it was like 15 days later. I don't remember the exact details of that, but you want to do that right away. The good news is when you do get a driver's license, it's good for 8 years. I know back in Ohio it was only good for 4 years, but I haven't lived in Ohio for 7 years, so I'm not sure if that has changed or if every state is different. But here in Florida, at least in our county, it's 8 years, which is great. If you're a married woman and you go to get your driver's license, it's not so easy. You're definitely going to want to call and ask them exactly what they need. I have a passport, and I thought that would be good enough. Thankfully, I did not just go stand in line for 2 hours and and hope for the best and get my Florida driver license. I called to find out, and I had to get my birth certificate. I had to get my marriage license, and I couldn't find some of these things because we had just moved, so I had to order it, and you had 10 days. So it was a bit of a stressful moment for me. So I'm like, I have a passport. I couldn't have gotten the passport without the birth certificate and everything else, and they didn't care. They wanted all that information. The other thing is impact fees. When you have a car and you bring it down here and you have to register it, I don't know all the details. I know it's called impact fee, and it was a lot of money. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was in the high hundreds, maybe $800. And I don't remember if that was per car or for both cars. I want to say it was for for one car, but I don't remember. It was a shocker. I remember that because it was a lot. I was like, what? And a lot of people say, what? Everybody's shocked by it. So it's something you should know about and be prepared for. That's why I say make sure you have money when you move here or anywhere, because there's always unexpected fees and things you have to do that you didn't expect that will cost money. And the other thing is when you're driving, and I talked yesterday about lots of accidents, and I think also part of the reasons with the accidents is that the weather's nice here most of the year, and a lot of people walk and they ride their bikes and they use their motorcycles, and especially the younger people who are on their bikes or running or walking, they've got their little earpiece on with the music and they just cross the street, don't bother looking, and people get killed. Very just horrific, horrible. If you're going to walk or bicycle, keep the earphones out. If you're biking, put the helmet on, because you will get hit one of these days unless you're super careful and super aware of your surroundings. You can't just cross the street and assume that the driver is going to pay attention to you, and vice versa. If you're driving, don't think that the person crossing the street is going to use common sense that they hopefully were taught it to look both ways before crossing the road. They just walk without looking. I don't know. I think we were all taught to look both ways when crossing the street, but too many accidents. And a lot of them are, like I said, people that are in their teens or 20s that are just cross the street, but not everybody. Some are even older. You will see people who are bicyclists, professional bicyclists. They have a helmet. They've got one of those rearview mirrors off the side of their helmet. They are wearing neon t-shirts. They've got more mirrors on their bicycle so they can look back. They've got horns. I mean, they're prepared. And even then, they're like aware. They're looking around. They're checking out the cars. So you know that they know what they're doing. So just be careful. I just want to make another disclaimer. Some of these things here I'm telling you I don't want to deter you from coming to Florida, because it's absolutely beautiful. It's worth being here. But I think the move and living down here will be less stressful and just more enjoyable if you don't run across these things or aware that these things happen and you're prepared for it. The other thing is U-turns. Everywhere that I've been in Florida, there's U-turns. If you're going this way and there's stores over there, you've got all this green down the middle, and you can't just turn. You have to go up to the light. It could be a main intersection, and you have to do a U-turn. So when you're doing that U-turn, you got cars coming from this way. It's very dangerous. I think that's one of the problems with the accidents, is the way the roads are set up. I don't think it's safe, but what do I know? I'm not an engineer, but I've seen a lot of accidents because of this, because there's U-turns. You have to get around so you can go over there. And it's like that everywhere. You just can't get to the other side of the road unless you do a U-turn. But you do get used to it after a while, and you know to be careful. Now, I personally think that, and I know I have people that disagree with me, and it all depends on what type of job you have, what industry you're in, but overall, and you could probably check up online on the statistics for jobs and how much they pay, but I believe, and this is what I believe I've read, that Florida does pay less than up north or northeast, if that's where you're from. Just be aware that the jobs may pay less. You want to make sure that you check that out. But I do see a lot of people thinking Florida is very expensive to live in. And it can be if you live in certain areas. Like, for example, when we first moved down here in Sarasota, we lived in a nice apartment, and there was a Publix grocery store down the street. It was not much more expensive than what I was paying back in Ohio, but I did feel out of place with, I had a 15-year-old Saturn, and you have Rolls Royces and Jaguars and BMWs, Lexus, beautiful cars. It was like going to a car show every time I went to the grocery store, which I didn't mind at all. We moved about 20 miles away south from Sarasota when we purchased this house, and we purchased it at the crash, so we got it for a super deal. And it was very affordable, and the prices for groceries and food, I find, are pretty much the same as I was paying up in Ohio. So I think it depends on what town you're living in. Now, if you're in a very touristy area, it's going to cost you more. So we're not in a very touristy area because I'm not right on the beach, and we're inland a little bit. So it's just a middle class neighborhood for us, and it's not any more than, like I said, back in Ohio. So don't be afraid about that. Just find a neighborhood that you think that you can afford. One thing I was pleasantly surprised was by the diversity of wildlife. There are so many different beautiful big birds. Some of them come up here only in the summer because they're from like South America, and they're huge. They're like 4 feet big, and it's like going to the zoo. There's all kinds, and if you're a bird watcher, or if you're not, you will become one because it's just beautiful. And yes, you have alligators that you'll see crossing the street. You'll see these big, beautiful turtles crossing the street. So again, please be careful and slow down because you don't want to be running over. And it's so sad that I see wildlife getting run over because people are speeding, and that's not good. If you're gonna live on a canal, make sure you don't want to leave your small child or small dog or any dog outside ever alone. I mean, in my opinion, I see people leaving their dogs outside all the time. I suppose if you have a larger dog and it's not summer, because the sun and the heat will kill your animal. But small children, small dogs should never ever be left outside alone, not for a minute. There's these huge birds, that can, and it has swiped the little dogs away. And, that's scary. We have a small Chihuahua, as you know, Cookie. He's right at my ankles when I take him out because I'm afraid we have coyotes, we've got bobcats, we've got all kinds of animals. Don't think alligators only stay by the water. They're usually by the water in canals, but they do migrate across Florida. So I have luckily not seen one in my yard. We've usually just seen them along the canals and ponds. So just be careful about that. If you're careful, you'll be fine. So don't be afraid. People don't want to come to Florida because of the hurricanes. I haven't seen a hurricane in 7 years, and I'm not saying there won't be. We had a horrible one before we got here, and people are scared to death of them that survived it. Some of them lost their houses. It was Charlie. So if you want to look that up, I think it was 2004. It hit Punta Gorda and it hit this whole area, and people were without power for 2 weeks. So I think if you're just prepared, you have your extra food, extra water. If you're not in a house that's, blocked, go to the shelter, you'll be fine. If you want to move to Florida, don't not come because you're afraid something could happen. Something could happen anywhere. And like I said, car accidents are the worst. And I was in 2 very, very bad ones in my early 20s, and that was in Ohio. It can happen anywhere in the world. An accident, you could fall and slip and hit your head on the ground anywhere. So don't think you can't come to Florida because of a hurricane or because you're worried about sinkholes, because most sinkholes that, if you look online, it's called Sinkhole Alley, and I made a video. Just type in sinkholes in the search box on my main YouTube page, and you'll see the video, and it'll talk a little bit about it. I even have a map showing you where Sinkhole Alley is from Tampa to Orlando. All of Florida, it can be prone to sinkholes. The only ones I've ever seen were little ones on the road when a pipe broke, because it's all sand, so a little one. But I'm not saying that there can't be. My whole house sure could sink, at some time. But usually there's warning signs, like there's cracks in the walls, a little bit before, or cracks on the sidewalks. If you start seeing things crack, then you might want someone to check it out. And it's important that you have the right insurance to cover sinkholes and hurricanes and floods. So if you got all that, there's no reason to worry. Just be prepared like you would anywhere else. And if you own a home and you have to cut grass, you could plan on cutting your grass almost twice a week in the summer. And in the winter, you might not have to cut it at all, maybe once or twice, depending on how much it rains. And that was something I did not expect. I knew it rained every day. Everyone says, it rains every day a little bit, and then it passes by in the summer, and it's dry in the winter. The first couple of years we were here, the grass literally in the winter turned crunchy and brown because it did not rain. There was wildfires on the other side of the highway, and actually it came over the highway and burned some houses. Now, I don't think we have those big wildfires. I know we don't, like out west, where you have hundreds and thousands of acres that last for weeks on end. They usually get it under control. But it gets so hot and it can get so dry, and someone throws a cigarette off the highway into the dry brush or whatever reason, it could, start a fire. And in the summer, when it rains, it's like the ocean dropping down on you. It's very, very strong. And sometimes you can see the line of water coming towards you, and you're coming out of the grocery store and you're like, run! It's like a survival movie, throwing your groceries in the car and trying to get into your car and trying to get home before that rain, because once it hits, sometimes you just gotta pull over to be safe because you cannot see an inch in front of you. It just is heavy. That was just something that I got used to, and now I know, if I'm gonna go shopping, it has to be before this certain time of day so I don't get stuck in it. So you get used to things and how it is, and it does take most northerners about a year to get used to the heat, if ever, from the summer. But that's what air conditioners are for, because like I said in yesterday's video, it can get very hot. I personally like the heat, but some people are, I think a little surprised at how strong the sun is, because it really feels like it's closer. It probably is, since we're closer to the equator, but you could feel it. It feels like it's like right here. And you will burn, and it doesn't matter if you have sunscreen and whatnot. If you're going to be out in it too long in the summer during the day, you better be careful. Both our kids, actually, the first week we were at the apartment, they have a pool. We went swimming, and between the chlorine and the sun, and we weren't even out there more than 30 minutes, and they had like sun poisoning, blisters, and it was just horrible. So we were even extra careful and not to swim in the afternoon anymore after that. And the last thing I'll mention, and something I learned immediately the first week, because we had my car delivered by truck to our apartments, and we had to wait on the road for this truck to come with my car, and I was in sandals standing, that's why I don't wear sandals anymore and I wear the boat shoes, but I was standing on the grass. Keep in mind, I'm from Ohio, so you can lay and roll in the grass and nothing usually happens to you. But I was standing there waiting, for them to unload the car onto the road, and I just started feeling like this, like burning, biting something. And I looked down, I had all these fire ants crawling on my feet and up my ankles. Oh my gosh. I was standing on an anthill. Fire ants. Now we have them in Ohio, but they weren't everywhere like they are here. We had quite a few ants on our property back in Ohio, but they seemed to be like in the woods and stuff. They weren't too bad around the house. But yeah, I was just standing next to the sidewalk, freshly cut grass, and these ants were just biting me. Oh, my poor feet all week long. It was bad. The other thing, we have some poisonous spiders. We've got brown recluses and black widows. I'm not sure what else, but you do not want them biting you. The gentleman that came to look at our air conditioner a while back, he was telling us how he was working on an air conditioning unit at somebody's house, and a brown recluse bit his ankle. The poison of the spider pretty much ate his whole ankle. Thankfully, he could still walk. He's just missing muscle and skin and whatever should have been there. But he was lucky he didn't lose like his foot. It had gotten very bad, so you do not want to get bit by spiders. So if you do have a house or an apartment, make sure everything's sprayed either naturally or not, whatever pesticide you prefer, but just to make sure you do it to keep these things from biting you. Again, I'm not trying to scare you, because I just want you to be prepared ahead of time. Then you won't have any of these issues, or very few of them, or prevent them, or at least be aware of them. I hope this has helped a little bit. If you have any other questions or want me to make another video on Florida on a specific topic, let me know, comment below, and I'll see what I can do. Again, I only know what's in my particular area and what I personally experienced. You could find a lot of information by Googling it or just going on YouTube and searching. And I'm sure there's other videos. I can't really tell you where the best place to live, because everybody's different. Some people like the nightlife, some people prefer, the suburbs, some people prefer living in cities, some people prefer, right on the ocean. What you can afford and what you like, and we do different things. So you'll have to, I say in this situation, if you really want to know the best place, you would call a realtor and tell them how much you make, what kind of lifestyle do you want. It's a lifestyle choice too, where you want to live. Are you a city person? Would you prefer the country? Would you prefer to live inland, away from the ocean? Would you like to be on the ocean? Lots of questions to ask yourself, and realtors are really good in helping identify the location that you might want to be. Just contact somebody reputable, like RE/MAX or, a larger company. I would definitely stay away from Craigslist when it comes to finding a place to rent or buy. There's too many scams for people out of state. If you can't personally meet the people, see the house for yourself, I don't recommend it. I would stick with a realtor. I honestly would. You're not paying any fees for that. That's what the renter or the seller is doing. They pay the commission to sell the house, and they're paying a commission to the management companies. You as a buyer or renter are not paying extra to contact a realtor. That's all I got. I hope you liked this video. Thumbs up. Don't forget to share. It really helps grow our channel. We really appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't, and we'll see you next time.